Hello! Welcome back to Hold On, I'm Talking Brother. My name is Joe Greenwood, and you are listening to the review of UFC 296, which was headlined by Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington for the welterweight title, with the co-main event of Alexandre Pantoja, or is it Pantoja, versus Brendan Royval for the flyweight title. I am not joined by my regular co-host Tom Ballum, so it's me by myself. Fire in the booth, strap in, people. Let's go straight to the main event. Leon Edwards defeats Colby Covington by unanimous decision. The phrase that came into my head was chat shit, get 50-45. Because that is what I had that fight. 50-45 to Leon Edwards in my mind. On the judges' scorecards, 49-46. I understand giving that fifth round to Colby. I understand why he went for it in that fifth round, so he can have some weird moral victory. Where he could then lift his hands up and go like, look, I finished the fight on top. And it's this weird thing that the commentary bought into as well that I just do not understand in the slightest. Like, it was just a very odd reaction to the finish of that fight. But, you know, if you want to buy into certain narratives and you're of a certain persuasion, and I get it, like, you want to, I don't know, feel like American wrestling is better than British wrestling, which it clearly isn't anymore. Leon Edwards is the best wrestler in the welterweight division, and I think we just have to just accept that fact, you know. All kidding aside, folks, that was a horrible build to that fight. I really did find it disgusting. Me and Tom recorded before that press conference happened, and I'm not going to repeat it. We all know what happened there. It was disgusting and vile. And, you know, when you saw Leon after he won the fight talking about, you know, how can you use my dad's death as entertainment, it still breaks my heart. And people still defend it because they say, oh, but Dana said that it made 25%, the pay-per-view sales went up by 25% because of that. First off, prove it. Like, give us the numbers. No, you're not going to do that? Oh, weird. Are they not that good? Maybe. And also, why is that an incentive for fighters to say disgusting, heinous shit? Because Colby Covington didn't make any pay-per-view points on this fight. He can maybe intonate like, oh, how do you know? Yeah, we know. We've seen the text messages and the emails. We've seen them now. We've seen that you guys do not get pay-per-view points, so, you know, yeah, maybe a couple extra quid went into Leon's pocket. Cheers for that, mate. But nothing goes into yours, so you've sold your soul for what exactly? I'll get into Colby in a bit, but let's start with Leon. What was it? Was he even in second gear? Was he even in second gear? That man, like, beat Colby Covington in every single aspect. And I think Covington kind of made his own death within the fight of backing up onto the edge of the cage, giving Leon loads of space behind him so he could just poke at him, prod at him, strike without much fear. And then proceeded to, like, throw nothing out there. And when he does throw, if you see Colby, when he throws, he does these huge movements, before he strikes, because his striking is really bad. And then Leon just took 2 steps back out of range, and Colby missed, and then Colby exerts this energy that maybe his cardio's a bit overrated. Maybe we need to acknowledge that. You know, maybe it's easy to put on a cardio beatdown on Tyron Woodley, a man who's perpetually backing up to the fence, even now at home, against a washed Robbie Lawler, against RDA, who is a lightweight. Like, you know, against Kamaru Usman, didn't really do that for 25 minutes like he did against those guys. Couldn't do it against Leon Edwards. Maybe it was a myth, that thing, you know. Yeah, and he just backed up to the fence. His lateral movement was not disguised. So when he went lateral to move laterally, he squared himself up, and then Leon just prodded him to the body and jabbed to the body. Like that rear leg kick in southpaw or orthodox, just prodding him to the body, was excellent from Leon. But Colby, when he moved laterally, he didn't disguise it with punches. He didn't punch then move. It was just move. Like, his striking is less than rudimentary. Like, if you go to any boxing club here in the UK, you will find, you know, a 12, 13-year-old who has been boxing for under a year, who understands that you have to use the hands, you have to use your strikes to hide your movement. And Colby just doesn't have that concept, which is a mark against him as a fighter, and maybe even his coaches across his whole career. You know, that's not great. Anyway, back to Leon. Leon also with his just, you know, the clinch game, it wasn't really there that much for Leon, but again, when it is there, he strikes into the clinch. Like, he'll throw punches just to get into the clinch so then he can elbow you, because obviously the elbow is the more, can be the more significant shot. And yeah, Leon looked smooth. Like, he looked clean, he looked neat, he looked unworried, unfussed. It was a really good performance, I thought, from Leon. And the reason why the fight was subpar was because of Covington. Covington, I mean, nearly 2 years off, approaching 36 years old. He's a couple months away from being 36 years old. And, yeah, this is kind of what I thought was going to happen. Like, when the fight was announced, like, after his fight with Usman, like, yeah, Colby's next. We don't, book fights the night of, but yeah, Colby's next. Oh, okay. Why doesn't any journalist, those people at press conferences are not journalists, any of those warm bodies at those press conferences go, oh, how come you booked Colby for that fight, even though you said you never do that? You're going to do that for Bilal Muhammad now? Oh, no, you're not going to do that. Oh, weird. Okay. Yeah, Colby laid an egg, and this is his last shot at a title. He must have known that. He must have known that he wasn't going to win. I think maybe there was a thing where he was like, I can't win this fight, so I have to win some verbal thing, and then I have to make sure I don't get humiliated. So I'm just going to back up and just get kicked in the leg, prodded to the body, beat up on the feet, and then out-wrestled. That ninja choke was sweet from Leon, and plus that the two triangles he landed, how he switched position on them, like one move away from having it in fully tight on Covington. The ninja choke was in. That was in. Covington offered nothing. And do you know what, actually, there's an interesting thing here with Usman, Covington, and Bilal Muhammad, who I believe is next. The reason why those guys are not a problem for Leon and Shavkat Rakhmonov is because none of them have a submission threat. Like, none of them have a submission threat. And so that's the problem with wrestlers, is they don't normally have submission threats. So Leon, when he gets taken down, he doesn't have to worry about a submission. He can just, like, oh, I'm going to give up my back. You're going to do nothing there. I'm going to break your hands. We're going to turn into the clinch. I'm going to push off and maybe elbow you on the break. And then you've taken me down, exerted all this energy, and you got nothing from it. Now, obviously, I'm going to fight the takedowns because I want to keep this standing. I don't want to have to use the energy to get back up. But, I'll attack a submission because whatever. I mean, the only reason Covington ended up on top for the last 50 seconds of that fight was because Leon went for it. He went for a takedown to prove a point. He got the takedown, wanted to attack a submission, and he ended up on bottom for the last 50 seconds, minute. And then Covington, I'll do my tiny little hammer fists, and nothing happens. And now I'm going to lose, and I'm going to say I've lost this fight because the judges hate Trump. And oh my God, it was beautiful. And then Trump's walking out in the middle of his post-fight speech. I want nothing to do with that loser. He's probably thinking to himself, or saying out loud to no one in particular. Let me take a sip of water. Covington laid an absolute egg, and then thanked the first responders in the hope that people would cheer, which they normally would, in a valiant losing effort, but they booed him. That was superb. That was like top level pro wrestling, like Steve Austin versus Bret Hart, where Bret Hart comes in the face, Austin comes out as the heel, and by the end of the match, Austin's the face and Bret's the heel, and it changed both of their runs for that year, for the year of 97. So, and actually their careers as such. Covington, yeah. I mean, obviously not as skillfully as those two, but fair play, mate. If you really wanted to be a heel, you did a great job of it. And then calling out Wonderboy, hilarious. I mean, Covington, his career now, we can officially say, was never that great. His greatest performances are in defeat. One where he got finished and one where he was clearly beaten. It's funny that, isn't it? Being able to kind of hang with the champ is enough for people to think that you're a top-level guy. And then you actually look at the wins and who he's beaten. I mean, Damian Maia, he fought him after Woodley and Usman, I believe. No, wait, hold on. He might have been in between. But either way, Woodley had shown the way to beat him. Covington did it worse than Woodley. Then defeats RDA, a 155er, fighting at 170. RDA had a good run at 170, but he's a 155er. Loses to Usman by knockout. Broken jaw. That's the fight. That's the career-changing one, because then he fought Robbie, who was, washed. Fights Usman again. Fights a pace or two behind where he was before. He's out of boxing range because he didn't want his jaw broken again. His brow broken or his jaw broken. And then, Woodley wins by Woodley going for a guillotine and breaking a rib. I mean, Covington was winning the fight up to then. Had the rematch with Usman. Beats a beyond washed Jorge Masvidal. And then loses to Edwards 2 years later. A waste of a career, I'll say. He's in the Yoel Romero zone where he's had too many title shots now. I mean, Yoel ended up with 4. 2 of them were interim. 2, he missed weight. He missed weight for the second Whittaker fight, which was a title fight. And he missed weight for the Rockhold interim fight. So, in a way, he's more egregious, but he got to 4. Although, actually, I think this is worse. This sort of performance is worse. A lot of people compared it to, like, Josh Koscheck of, like, talking shit and, laying an egg against the much better fighter. But, Koscheck in defeat was like, yeah, George is the better man. He got the better of me. I tried to hype this fight. Didn't work out. Oh, well. Moved on. Chael Sonnen. Charming heel persona. That's what a heel is. A heel is a guy you want to boo, but you have to watch them. And Colby Covington is a guy I have no interest in ever hearing from again. Even before this fight. And now we never have to, and it's great. People compared him to John Fitch and Josh Koscheck in terms of, like, boring, welterweight, and all that. Those two men are 10 times the man that he ever is, and that's an understatement. Those two were trying to be forced into fighting each other because Dana didn't want 2 boring wrestlers getting title shots. And I get that. But they didn't do it. Because that's their friend. That's their brother. That's their teammate. What does Colby do? He insults Masvidal's family and kids. Makes disgusting remarks about them. About him. Personal, vile things. To then get a fight to sell pay-per-views that he didn't even get pay-per-view points on. And by the way, I know that Masvidal got pay-per-view points on that one, so again, well done, Colby, for promoting a fight and getting your enemy more money, but not you. I mean, the man is, simply put, a moron. And thankfully we never have to see him again. Off you, fuck. Cheerio. Bye-bye. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Moving on now, I think it has to be Belal for Leon. I think that'll be an easy fight. I think Leon can finish him probably inside of 2 or 3 rounds. I think he'll piece him up. I don't think Belal has much for him, but apart from the fact that Belal will always be at him. Belal deserves it, He had that fight with Leon, and then after that he had the Luke win, he had the Wonderboy win, he had the win over Sean Brady, he had the win over Gilbert Burns, and if you look at before that, Leon fight where he stepped in on short notice, he had Diego Lima and Curtis Millender, he had Takashi Sato, like guys that weren't like, ranked or whatever. And having that Leon fight elevated him into a higher echelon. I know he had that Jeff Neal fight that he lost and that bumped him down, and that's fair, that's how it should be. But he came back, he's won all his fights, fair, cleanly. You may not like it, but he's done it. He's on the run, and he's the guy, and they've got a little bit of a history, and I think that's it. And I think welterweight is in a brilliant position now. You got Usman and Covington kind of out of the way. Shame that it didn't work out with Hamzat, but whatever. But we've got Bilal, Rakhmonov, Ian Gary's on the come up. He's got the fight against Jeff Neal. They've got a bit of history. Jack Della Maddalena versus Gilbert Burns, also set for Miami. Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page. Sean Brady got a win recently. Welterweight's refreshing. It's starting to open up again. You know, they're great new contenders for Leon to face. That's why I'm not interested in him facing the winner of Strickland versus Duplessis. Right, I'm going to blitz through the rest of this card because it was all kind of what we expected. Pantoja defeats Royval by out-grappling him. Yeah, about what we expected. Pantoja, I think, might have a bit of a problem, though, which is he is just so determined to finish you that he might gas himself out. I mean, he's got a heart of a lion, that man, and he'll keep going and find ways to win, and he'll dig in, and that's great, but you can't keep doing that in fights. Also, his whole thing of like chopping you at the legs, getting you exiting to your left so that he can swing his right hand at you. I mean, he literally just has the double right hand that he just like wings at you. I love it. I love his grappling. Royval is tough, and he got through that, but staying in half guard and not trying to get any sort of angle or turn. And I know you don't want Pantoja on your back, and that was the thing. He just didn't want Pantoja on his back, so he just stayed in half guard. And when he gets to the fifth, and he's like down pushing, and he's jabbing, and he's double jabbing and throwing straight behind it, he's throwing his hands with a bit of purpose. You know, the mechanics of, okay, I'm not just jabbing for the sake of it, because, you know, you're not going to finish someone with a jab for the most part. I am just thinking of one way it was kind of like a jab, wasn't it? I guess Usman battering Burns, but, you know, Usman's a pretty powerful puncher, if, you know, technically not perfect, which is fine, actually. You know, having incorrect technique can be a great thing for you. Anyway, yeah, I think Pantoja needs to be careful, because, you know, if he's facing Moreno or Albazi in his next fight, this whole, like, I'm just going to empty it to get you out of there and overwhelm you thing, it will bite him on the ass. I love it for whilst we've got it, but the man's taking too much damage like this. I'm okay if he faces Albazi next and just outpositions him, outworks him, grapples him, strangles him. Like, I'm fine if you do that, mate. Like, trust me, you're really dope at it, so that's cool with me. Shavkat Rakhmonov defeats Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Yeah, Rakhmonov was brilliant. How he pinned Thompson's right arm against the mat so that he could then have two hands free to then work to the choke. It was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant how he leveraged Thompson's movement against him. And yeah, you know, he had the torn Achilles in his ankle, and people were saying that first round was boring. One boring first round and 18, you know, and he's had 18 finishes in 18 fights. 18-0, perfect record. The man is an oncoming beast. I think he is the most difficult challenge for Leon to face, and I think if Leon gets past him, I don't think Ian Gary will be that much of a problem other than his athleticism. I think maybe Jack Della Maddalena might be a bit of a problem with just his striking, but I think Leon mixes his grappling in, and the clinch game might be an issue for Jack. Yeah, and I think Shavkat should be next. His next fight should be a title fight. We know he's going to be out for a while now with this ankle surgery and recovery. But yeah, next after Bilal, I think. That's a nice line to see. Bilal, Shavkat, and then you let the other guys work themselves out. Ian Gary, if you beat Jeff Neal, Jack Della Maddalena, if you beat Gilbert Burns, you two go at it. I love that. Love that. Paddy Pimblett defeats Tony, mate. I'll reveal this to you, listeners. I was watching this fight. I was watching this card with my partner on the Sunday morning, and Tony's in this first round, and he's losing the first round. I'm like, okay, right, it's not too bad. And then Paddy drops, and he starts unloading, and I'm like, oh my god! I start going, stop the fight, please stop the fight, please stop the fight, please stop the fight. And it upset me. Genuinely upset me, and I like teared up a bit. Like when he went back to his corner, I was just like, yeah, teary-eyed, watching this man who was a complete destroyer and marauder and would sap you of your soul and your will to fight, just be completely mauled by Paddy Pimblett. And then my partner was just like, he's like, she knows a bit about MMA. She's not a huge MMA fan. She knows Tony. She said, he's too old to be doing this. And it's like, yeah, he is. He is. UFC have to give him one more fight and say, this is it, mate. This is it. You have to stop after this. Otherwise, we're not going to give you anything else. Because again, Dana said, I think Tony should retire. Next question should be, are you going to offer him another fight then? But they're not journalists. Ask the fucking question. And Josh Emmett defeats Bryce Mitchell with... Oh, by the way, Paddy Pimblett, yeah, well done, mate. You were going to get destroyed by anyone in those rankings. Best of luck to you, pal. Josh Emmett knocks out Bryce Mitchell. That was disgusting. Just the feint, the jab hand, and then crunching right hand over the top. Mitchell, I think, is never going to be a title winner. He's never going to be a title contender. I think his striking is just way too rudimentary. I picked Bryce Mitchell to beat Emmett because I thought Emmett was kind of on the come down now. But Emmett's athleticism is just overwhelming towards Bryce, and you realise now actually Bryce, when he gets up in those rankings, some of those guys are really good athletic dudes, and yeah, Bryce just looks so flat on his feet. I think, yeah, if he's ever gonna get anywhere, I think he needs to go away, train his striking, make his feet lighter. This whole staying at your camp and being a farmer and staying with that one camp, I think is a recipe for not getting very far, personally. Emmett, well done, mate. Great win, but you were still fodder for the next rising crop of challengers. And yeah, I don't know how much longer he's going to stay up there. The knockout was disgusting, though. Oh my days. And then in twitching afterwards. Oh! And they knew how gross it was by showing it, and they're like, oh my days, you didn't have to do that to the man. Did Bryce dirty there. But then, I guess a great highlight reel for Emmett. Next Emmett fight, co-main event of a fight night. They'll be showing that Bryce knockout and the Bryce twitching. Look at what this man can do. I get it. I know why they did DDP and Strickland a couple rows from each other. We know why they did it. Come on, lads. Right, listeners, sorry for this shortened episode and late episode. Recording with Tom is falling apart this week, and I apologise for that, and Tom apologises as well. We will be back next week to do a breakdown of the year 2023 and preview the year 2024. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Leave us your predictions for next year. You can email us at holdonbrother69@gmail.com. Leave your previews and predictions for next year and your favourite moments from this year if you have any. Thank you so much for joining me. My name has been Joe Greenwood. This has been the podcast Hold On, I'm Talking Brother. Thank you so much. And enjoy the fights. Day of Reckoning this Saturday. You got Wilder and Joshua fighting on it. They're not fighting each other, but, they're fighting. So that'll be good. I guess, hopefully. Right. See you later, listeners. Goodbye, and have a Merry Christmas. Yeah? I like that I went for the Saudi Blood Money show over Christmas Day. Yes, that is more important to me than Christmas. Merry Christmas, listeners. And, yeah. Lots of love to you. Bye-bye.